China tested a UK helicopter, thinking it would back off fast. No missiles, no shouting, just pressure in open air. But the British crew didn't panic. They stayed locked in and steady. Every second China pushed closer, the situation got riskier for them. Because this wasn't a helpless aircraft, it was trained for exactly this. And in moments, China realized, wrong target, wrong move. China tested a UK helicopter, thinking it would back off fast. No missiles, no shouting, just pressure in open air. It began like a normal patrol. A British military helicopter moved steadily over open water, calm and controlled, following its route like it had done 100 times before. The sea below looked quiet. The sky was clear. Nothing about the moment suggested trouble was coming. Then the first contact appeared. A Chinese aircraft approached from the distance, fast and direct. At first it stayed wide, just close enough to be seen, but far enough to look routine. The kind of approach that sends a message without saying a word. We see you, we're watching you. Inside the British helicopter, the crew noticed immediately. But there was no panic, no sudden turn, no rushed radio chatter. The pilot held the same heading, the same altitude, the same speed. The crew stayed focused, tracking the movement with calm precision. The Chinese aircraft moved closer, not aggressively, but deliberately. It began to slide into a position that limited space, tightening the angle like a slow squeeze. It wasn't an attack posture, it was intimidation, designed to force the helicopter into reacting first. Because helicopters are supposed to be easy targets in these situations. They're slower, less protected, less dangerous than a fighter jet. Most of the time, pressure alone is enough to make them turn away and create distance. That's what China expected. But the British helicopter didn't give the reaction they wanted. It stayed steady, refusing to break its line. That calm response made the situation feel heavier, because in the air, silence can mean fear or confidence. And the longer the helicopter stayed composed, the harder it became to believe it was scared. The Chinese pilot tried again. A closer pass, a sharper angle, a move meant to test nerves. The aircraft cut across the helicopter's forward space, not close enough to collide, but close enough to make the message clear. We can get closer if we want. Still, the UK crew didn't flinch. They didn't chase. They didn't run. They didn't fight the moment. They simply held their position and kept flying as if the pressure wasn't working. And that's when the real problem started for China. Because every time they moved closer, they weren't just threatening the helicopter. They were increasing their own risk. One wrong calculation, one sudden gust, one small mistake in speed or distance, and it wouldn't be intimidation anymore. It would be an incident. A headline? A disaster. The British crew understood that, and they were about to use it. The British helicopter didn't need to chase the Chinese aircraft. It didn't need to win with speed or aggression. It only needed to stay calm long enough for the pressure to backfire. The Chinese aircraft stayed close, circling and repositioning like it was trying to control the airspace around a much slower target. From a distance, it looked dominant. Fast jet versus helicopter. Easy. But up close, the situation was not that simple. A helicopter isn't helpless. It may be slower, but it's stable. It can hold position. It can keep a steady line. And most importantly, it can force the other side to take all the risk. Inside the UK helicopter, the crew kept doing what trained crews do best. Stay professional. They tracked every movement, watched the angles, and recorded everything. No shouting, no emotional reaction, just clean coordination. Because in encounters like this, the first side to lose discipline loses control. The Chinese pilot pushed for a stronger message. A tighter pass, a sharper cross. A move meant to make the helicopter break away. The aircraft cut across the helicopter's forward view again, close enough to feel intimidating, but still just inside safe distance. But the British pilot didn't turn away. He held the course and forced the Chinese aircraft to adjust, again and again. And that's where the balance started to shift. The Chinese aircraft was the one constantly moving, constantly correcting, constantly committing to risky positioning. The helicopter stayed steady, almost stubborn, refusing to give the jet a clean moment of control. Every second that passed, the Chinese pilot had fewer good options. If he backed off, it would look like the intimidation failed. If he stayed close, he risked crossing a line that couldn't be uncrossed, and the UK crew knew it. The helicopter made a small move. Not dramatic, not aggressive, just a subtle adjustment in heading. A clean, controlled change that didn't look like fear, it looked like intention. The Chinese aircraft had to react immediately. It shifted outward to avoid getting too close. It corrected its line. It widened space just enough to stay safe. That tiny reaction was everything. Because for the first time, the Chinese pilot wasn't controlling the helicopter. He was responding to it. The pressure had flipped. The British helicopter didn't have to threaten. It didn't have to escalate. It simply stayed disciplined and forced the situation into a place where the jet couldn't push harder without taking unacceptable risk. And once that reality hit, the intimidation stopped being powerful. It started looking careless. The Chinese aircraft eased off slightly, drifting wider, creating space. Not a retreat, at least not officially. More like a reset. A way to exit without admitting the test had failed. The UK helicopter continued its patrol like nothing had happened. Same altitude, same speed, same calm. But the message was now clear. China tried to test a UK helicopter, and seconds later, they realized they'd picked the wrong target. The separation didn't happen suddenly. It happened quietly, like a decision made without wanting attention. The Chinese aircraft widened its distance, climbing slightly and drifting to the side. The aggressive angles were gone. The close passes stopped. The pressure faded into something neutral, something professional. From the outside, it might have looked like nothing. Just an aircraft moving away from a helicopter over open water. No smoke, no flares, no dramatic maneuvers, no obvious winner. But inside both cockpits, the meaning was obvious. The test was over. The British helicopter kept flying its route exactly as before. No celebration, no radio bragging, no sudden change in posture. The crew stayed focused, used, steady, and calm, because that was the whole point. The helicopter didn't win by being faster or stronger. It won by refusing to be controlled. Every aggressive move the Chinese aircraft made had required precision. Perfect timing, perfect spacing. One mistake would have turned intimidation into a dangerous incident, and the longer the jet stayed close, the more likely that mistake became. That risk didn't belong to the helicopter, it belonged to China. The UK crew understood something simple. In the air, pressure only works if the other side reacts. If the target panics, the attacker controls the moment. But if the target stays disciplined, the attacker is forced to keep escalating or back off. And escalation comes with consequences. Because one wrong move near a helicopter isn't just tactical, it becomes political. It becomes international. It becomes a story nobody wants to explain. That's why the Chinese aircraft didn't push further. It wasn't fear. It wasn't weakness. It was reality. The jet could keep circling, keep squeezing, keep testing limits, but the moment it crossed the line, there would be no clean way out. And the British helicopter was making sure that line stayed visible. Back on the UK side, the crew logged everything. Times, angles, distances, movement patterns. The kind of information that matters later, not for headlines, but for briefings, for planning, for understanding what the other side was trying to prove. Because encounters like this aren't accidents. They're messages. China wanted the helicopter to move, to turn away, to show hesitation, to admit control. But the helicopter never gave them that moment. It stayed calm, it stayed steady, it stayed professional. And in the end, that calm did something stronger than any aggressive response ever could. It removed the other side's confidence. The sea below remained quiet. The horizon stayed wide and empty. The British helicopter continued forward, unchanged, as if the entire encounter had never happened. No victory set. No dramatic finish. Just a simple lesson written in silence. Sometimes the biggest mistake isn't starting a confrontation. It's choosing a target that doesn't need to react at all.